Hey, it's Joey Thurman. I'm excited to bring you Season 2 of the Fad or Future podcast. We live in a world where information is everywhere, easy to access, and sometimes not always accurate, especially in the health and wellness space, which is exactly why I created this show. There's two sides to every story, and I'm here to present both and let you decide, is it a fad or is it the future? Health fads come and go, but the science behind them is what makes them work. Or fail. I'm bringing the experts to you and putting the facts on the table so you can decide how and where to put your efforts in your own personal health and wellness journey. What's going on? It's Joey Thurman. Here's another episode of the Fad or Future podcast. In front of me is a good-looking man in his own right. He calls me Sexy Joey, which I am totally okay with that. My friend for quite some time now. Brian Kent, an author of the brand spanking new book, Walked On, Lessons from a Two-Sport Non-Scholarship College Athlete. Brian, buddy, well, it's nice to see you. I wish we could do this in person. I wish I could give you a hug, smell your musk, but we can't do that, and we're on Zoom right now. But congratulations, buddy, and it's nice to see you.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I'm losing here because I'm not in the room. It's with Sexy Joey, and I can see you through Zoom. Got to get you a Zoom deal, because if you can come across this sexy through a Zoom call, I mean, in person, watch out, people. So,
okay.
Yes.
You know, I really wish we could talk about myself during this whole podcast, but you know, I only have done, in almost 2 years of doing this, I've only done one solo episode podcast. So enough about me, man. So I met you back in 2006. I got in my yellow Mustang convertible. Don't hate. It was okay. I loaded that thing up from St. Louis, drove to Chicago. I took a job at Crunch Fitness, which I think there's maybe like 2 in the world now that are still open. And you were one of the, what did we call them at the time? Head trainers, or there was different levels there, if you will.
Yes.
And you've always been somebody I look up to, because there was this guy that, like, oh yeah, he played college sports. And, you know, at the time, you know, we'll get into it. You hadn't donned a White Sox uniform, but your work ethic was really second to none in that facility. And no disrespect to anybody else, but you carried yourself differently. So I've always looked up to you, and I don't look up to many trainers, honestly. And you are one of those ones that I can look up to. So you have a consistent work ethic, which comes across in this book. And tell me a little bit about why you wrote this book, and you know, we'll start going from there, because I really think this story needs to start at the beginning, as they say, because most people would think that, okay, you were in a Chicago White Sox uniform, you got all these scholarships, you were a dual sport college athlete, but that's really not the story, right?
Correct. You know, well, first of all, thank you for the compliments. I appreciate. I think that training and sports are similar, because if you're a freshman on a team, it's always helpful to have the juniors and seniors kind of guide you and set the tone for what the program is like. So I remember when Sexy Joy came into Crunch, and he was this handsome kid strolling in there, you know, trying to find his way. So I think it's from a sports perspective, it's always great for the older guys to help out the younger guys and sort of show them how to be successful and make that connection from leadership standpoint, from a professionalism standpoint, and just from a training standpoint. So I liked you back then, and it's cool to be with you again now. But yeah, the book part, it was interesting. I did play college baseball. I did play college football, and my parents had been after me for probably maybe while it was even happening. They said, you know, you should really write a book about these weird experiences that you've had, because coming out of high school, I grew up in Southwest suburbs, kind of where you are. I grew up in Downers Grove. I went to Downers Grove South. My dad was a football and a wrestling coach, and eventually a baseball coach there. Both my sisters graduated there after me, and I grew up a block away from the school. So I grew up with a lot of school pride, a lot of hometown pride, and a lot of probably ethnocentric behavior, thinking that if I'm on this team, this is the best team. So my experience as a young athlete, you know, I had great coaches. My dad was my coach from Little League, Pee Wee football, all the way through high school, essentially. And, you know, I had other good coaches along the way as well. But the story started at South, and I use this as an example for all the kids that I work with. And our football program at Downers South in the late 90s was awesome. Mid to early 90s. 93, they were state runners up, losing to Loyola in the 6A finals. 6-0, I think it was, 7-0. My sophomore year, they were in the quarterfinals of this Illinois state playoffs. We lost. I was a sophomore, pulled up to varsity at the end, so I was on the field and saw that up close. So going into my junior year, this is a program that is pretty well known, and the Chicago Tribune has us number 1 in the state preseason. This is a team of seniors, and the seniors were freaking studs. They were 29-1 going into their senior year. So I'm on the bench, and we're playing Stevenson in week 1 up in Lincolnshire, which from Downers Grove, it seemed like we were going to Canada. Like I don't know if I'd ever gone that far on a bus. So we're number 1 in the state. We go to Stevenson. I'm on the bench, which I probably should have been as a junior on a senior dominant team. And they beat the hell out of us. They are, destroying us. So garbage time, I get in the game, and I played well in a small sample size. And one of the South program pillars that I feel like is really important for all kids is that we were taught that if you have an opportunity and you make the most of it, then you are rewarded with more opportunities. So even though we got our asses whooped in this opening game, personally, I played well, and I was given the chance to start in week 2 against Oak Park. And now I feel kind of funny as a grown 41-year-old man talking about like high school stories, but it's not glory days. It's not Al Bundy. Oh, I scored 4 touchdowns. Like this one play, like sort of set me on a path.
Yeah.
So in week 2 at Oak Park, again, the game is slow. Again, these seniors haven't really lost much. And my dad, who has a memory like an elephant, he's like, yeah, we started off slow. Like we were kind of moping and not playing well. I caught a pass, and I'm running down the field, and a guy comes up to tackle me, and I light him up. I run through him, and I make a collision that sort of sets our sideline and our offense on fire. And my teammates would say it sounded like there was a car accident on the field. I broke the kid's helmet in his nose. They had to carry him off the field. Like it was pretty violent. But that one play sort of gave me confidence that, I could play at a varsity level, that I could be an impact player. And because our team was so good, no one had ever heard of me. And so I was doing well under the team concept with these opportunities that were presented to me. And that one play, as I tell the kids that I work with, like that one play could be remembered 25 years from now. If I wanted to start, like, when did the story really begin? It's probably that play that put me on a trajectory that gave me confidence that I could play sports at a high level.
Yeah, it's amazing to look back at things like that, because you're right. Everybody talks about their glory days and their high school days, but you rarely hear the defining moment in somebody's career, whether that's sports or anything else. And I even as our young son, I'm going to require him to play a sport when he is young, because a team sport specifically, because you learn so much, especially with a good coach and a good mentor, that carries over into your entire life. But looking at it, and you literally look at a magnifying glass of that crush, that hit that propelled you, that kind of lit your fire there into having that confidence. And I think a lot of people, they really don't have the confidence until they realize that they can step up. It's like you never get better about playing a worse team. You always get better when you surround yourself with better people and you play that better team. So you had that opportunity and you were able to lift yourself up. Okay, so it's junior year. You broke a dude's nose, you broke his helmet, and now you've got the confidence. So where does life take you from there? Because if I was just to hear that story, and we just did that, the highlight of this podcast clip, you think, okay, this guy becomes a stud. He gets a football scholarship. He goes on to glory. But did that happen?
No, I would say no. I never really thought of myself as like the star player. And as you mentioned, the seniors were so good. I was a junior guy. I didn't want to be the guy that like held us back, right?
Mm-hmm.
They let the seniors go, and then they'll win. They have proven that. So after I knocked the guy out against Oak Park, we have a game the following week against Willowbrook, and same scenario. The whole defense is keyed on our tailback, not me. I take a handoff, I'm running up the middle, and the guy comes up to tackle me. I lay him out again, and they got to carry him off the field. So again, in 2 weeks, I had knocked 2 guys out of the game, and we had 2 big wins. So now, is that all me? Absolutely not. Football is a team sport. I mean, you're a hockey guy. Like the collisions are a part of the game, but I was able to make 2 big plays in a short time on a good team that sort of establish myself as an impact player. And back then you had to create your own sort of highlight tape for colleges. So on my VHS highlight tape, if you got kids that don't know what a VHS tape is, you have to Google that. But I had those plays as my first couple of plays on the tape. So any coach that would come in and watch, they would say, "Holy shit, like this kid's killing people." Then they would bring me down to the office. And they'd say, "Oh, well, you look a lot bigger in your pads." So I didn't quite have the frame to inspire full scholarships and all that, but I definitely had a little bit of spark on tape. And I would say those plays were cool, but you have to continue to play well, right? You can't just have one great play in a crappy game, because the tape will show that. I think that what we really learned is having the consistency of playing well was more important than any flashy play. So while there were a couple of flashy plays, I learned the importance of consistency, because we used to get these little stickers on our helmets, right? High school football helmet stickers were cool. And if we got a light blue Mustang, it was because our grade of the game was a B or higher. So we averaged out to having a good sticker, a good performance for consistency. So the big hits, the bad boy hits, those were awesome. But if you had no consistency stickers, it's like, oh, well, anyone can get lucky once, right?
Wow. That's really interesting, because I haven't heard a lot about that mantra, because you said something that stuck with me, is you said, even though you were a junior and you made this big play, that the seniors should still take the reins, and they've proven themselves. Most high school kids at that time aren't going to have that mentality. They're going to think they need to be in the game regardless if they are the best or not, because they feel like that they can, they want to be seen, or their parents try to get them in there, or they yell at the coach, whatever it is. What gave you that mentality at such a young age?
I always looked up to the older kids, and especially at South. My dad was a coach. We grew up across the street, and I had learned that to watch the older kids was probably a smart decision, to see how they, again, like I was telling you when you came to Crunch, to sort of set the tone. Like, how do these guys who are good football players, how do they carry themselves? How are they practicing? What are their habits like? Are they training the right way? Are they, building camaraderie on the field? Are they showing leadership skills when things are going well, or when they're not going well? And everyone can play well when you're winning, right? But your real character comes out when you're losing. And when you saw a bunch of gritty dudes that would dig in and fight when they were down, like, that was a testament to their character and some of the pillars of the program, that we play hard till the whistle ends, until the game is over. So as a junior, it's like, okay, well, these guys are seniors. It's their last year of high school. They're pretty freaking good. Like, I get it. Like, I'm it's not my time yet. I'll be ready just in case it is, but I understand why I'm not in the game right now. They deserve a first crack. And I think you're right. I think some of these kids are like, oh, well, I'm not sitting on the bench. No way. I don't sit on the bench. And I'm like, well, if you run an all-star team in the NHL or MLB, there's a chance you could be on the bench. So, like, how do you use that time well? What are you learning? How are you prepared? So should you get your chance, you're ready to make the most of it.
Yeah, you're right. It is about taking the opportunity. Okay, so you played football, and you were also a pretty high-level high school baseball player too.
So I loved football. I loved baseball. I loved basketball. My dad coached wrestling. My sisters played volleyball. I come from a very sport-based family. But football and baseball were very much, I don't know if you ever saw the ESPN 30 for 30 on Deion's double play, where Deion Sanders plays in 2 MLB playoff games and 1 football game in the same weekend.
I actually haven't seen that.
It's awesome. But he talks about how it's like dating 2 women, right? So when you're with football, you're thinking about baseball, and you're with baseball, you're thinking about football. And I had a real hard time, like, committing fully to either one, which hurt me for sure, as I tried to play up in college and beyond. So even when we were writing the book, my sister wanted to put, it's very visual. There's a lot of pictures in there. And she's like, well, should we use a football picture or a baseball picture? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I'm a grown man. I still can't decide over which one I like better. So I had a real hard time. I mean, I love them both, but I couldn't tell you, even if you were offering me a full scholarship or a number 1 draft pick, like, to just pick one. Even now, my stomach would flip over, because I couldn't decide over which one I wanted to go, which is a major problem for me, as the book will explain.
Yeah, interesting, because I played high level hockey, and I was a soccer goalie, and turns out my backup in high school ended up playing professional soccer. So it's one of those things where I probably should have gone on to play soccer, but my love was hockey. It's likely I could have been making a lot of money playing soccer, but
Sure.
it wasn't the love. So it was really interesting being torn between the girlfriends for you.
Right.
Now you're a one woman man.
Of course. Of course.
Okay. So your high school journey, where does that take you after that?
So baseball itself we weren't that good. I would say South was a football school,
Mm-hmm.
not quite like Texas or like that, but football was probably the dominant male sport, football, basketball, and not baseball. So when it was baseball season, it's like, oh, I love playing baseball, but like football in the book, like it's on TV on Saturdays. College football is always on.
Mm-hmm.
There was no college baseball on TV. The Tribune and the Sun-Times did never talk about college baseball. And growing up in Chicagoland, I feel like Chicago is a pro sports town. When I got to college, I found that some of these kids, like they grew up loving the Hawkeyes and loving the Huskers. Like it was their like life dream to play for them and have a jersey with their name on it. Like I get it. It's cool. We don't have that same connection here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have like, I guess in Chicago, I would say Notre Dame is important. Illinois, a little bit, Northwestern. I couldn't get into Northwestern. I could probably barely spell Northwestern back then. But we don't have that same like connection. So to me, like playing for the Bears or playing for the Cubs and Sox and the Bulls, like that was like the ultimate. So for baseball, having a good high school experience, and I was a 3-year starter as a varsity player, and South was a big school. At that time, we had about 200 kids in it. It was rare for sophomores to be varsity players. And my sophomore year, our team was not that great, but we got hot in the playoffs, and we were one game away from making it to state. It was probably my error on a throw at third base on a steal that, like I would say, was contributed to our loss. So I didn't take advantage of the opportunity on that steal, and we paid for it. So baseball was always like, I love catching. I love being a catcher. I love working with pitchers. I love being in charge of the defense. I love spending 3 hours in the squat down there. I love blocking balls in dirt. Yeah. I love the gritty, grimy part of it, which is probably consistent with like being a hockey goalie, right? I'm sure that those traits are reflected as well. But baseball I was probably a better baseball player, but I think I liked football more. And when it came down for after high school, I had a chance the University of Iowa was definitely recruiting me for both sports. So my body and my frame were probably more built for baseball, but I was given a chance to be a preferred walk-on the football team as a high school kid. And my body wasn't quite built for, I guess, looking back at it now, I didn't have the Division I and Big Ten size to offer up a scholarship, but I probably had a frame and a highlight tape that showed, this kid gains 20, 30 pounds. He could be good in a couple of years. Right. So football had offered me a preferred walk-on at Iowa, and the baseball coach had mentioned that I was one of 4 kids that were going to be given a baseball catching scholarship at the end of the season. And 2 of those kids ended up going elsewhere. So it was between me and another guy for the final Iowa catching scholarship. So I thought, oh, wow, I'm going to be a scholarship catcher at the same school I've agreed to be a walk-on fullback. Holy shit. This is like, I'm playing Big Ten football. I'm a scholarship catcher. The Cubs AAA team was in Des Moines. It's like, oh my God, like I'm on my path. Like we're ready to roll with this. And right around the end of my high school career, right before graduation, I get a call from Coach Dwayne Banks, who the Iowa baseball complex is now named after, saying that, hey, just want you to know I've retired effective immediately, and there's no scholarship being offered to anybody. This was probably late May of 1997, about a month before graduation. So he told me that if the new head coach was hired from within the program, then I could play 2 sports at Iowa as a freshman. And he kind of hinted that if baseball gave me a scholarship and football did not, I could play both sports for a year, and then eventually I would be playing baseball, which I feel like was a fair suggestion on his part, because I wasn't that big, but if I gained 20 pounds, maybe I would. But I was ready for baseball now. Right. So he said the new coach was hired from within the program. I could play football and baseball as we agreed upon, but just without a baseball scholarship.
Okay. So what goes through your mind when he calls and tells you that? Are you still still think at the time you're still a high school kid. Are you thinking, all right, I'm gonna conquer the world, I'm gonna get there, or are you just kind of destroyed because you had agreed to go there with this coach?
Probably a little bit of ignorance. I always thought, well, I don't care if I have a scholarship or not. I'll show you how good I am. And I will play because I will earn that spot whether I have a scholarship or not. My mentality, my work ethic will not change whether I'm on scholarship or walk on. But as long as you give me a chance, like that's all I'm asking for. Yes, a little money would have been helpful,
Right.
but as long as I'm on the field, cool. Like let's go. But obviously, it doesn't always work out that way. And when the new Iowa baseball coach was hired from within the program, after so I get to Iowa and I'm a football player and I have mono. When I get to school, I spend my first day in hospital, and I'm a 183-pound Big Ten fullback, which is very small and very light. And when you see punters and kickers that are bigger than you, it's like, that's. I'm little. Like I'm little for a high school kid, much less a Big Ten football player.
Right.
So that first fall at Iowa was pretty much survival mode. Trying to, once I was cleared for contact after about 6 weeks, they gave me an option to sort of sit out, but I wouldn't take that. I didn't come here to watch. I came here to fight and claw and play. But going to Taco Bell to eat 10 crunchy tacos before going to bed and try to put on a weight when you're 18. There's other ways that are probably a little bit more effective that I didn't know of then.
Right.
So I was little for Iowa football, and when it was time for baseball, the baseball coach basically told me that because I was on the football team, he would not have me on the baseball team because he was going to keep baseball players that were committed to baseball year round.
Wow.
So that was the first. That was a soul crusher because I knew in my heart that I would eventually become a strictly baseball player, but then to be told that I couldn't play baseball because I was playing football, when the whole reason why I went to Iowa was because I was told I could do both, really slapped me in the face.
So what did you tell the coach when he told you that? Did you try to convince him otherwise?
I had no response. Like I literally had not prepared for that suggestion, and I was stunned. I was stunned. Now again, here's my internal struggle. Had he said, "Okay, Brian, if you want to commit to baseball right now and quit football, you're in," I don't even know if I would have been able to make that choice in that moment. So that was a tough one because new coaches they never have to honor the decisions of previous coaches, and I was never one of his guys. I had just met him not too long after I got on campus. I was never one of his recruits, which is also a nice life lesson that you got to have people that want you.
Very, very, very interesting. I mean, that speaks volumes too. So, I mean, any kids listening right now or anybody, I mean, you got to have people that want you because, I mean, right there, I think that you probably were a little tongue-tied at 18, 19 years old and what to do. And we truly need these life lessons that happen to us, pun intended, I guess, for the book, that happen to us or that you learn from other people. And often, even if somebody tells you, like you can read this book and definitely check it out, but you can read the book if you don't implement the strategies. When these things happen to you, it's not going to do anything. It's like you can wish in one hand and shit in the other was going to fill up first. So, so you've got. I had to get that in there. All right, so now you're kind of stuck and a little distraught. So, what do you do to finish out the football season?
So, I had always assumed that spring was for baseball, but now I'm not on the baseball team, so I'm involved with football winter conditioning, which is hard and what it should be for the Big Ten level. I gained 20 pounds, so now I'm about 205, which is probably what I should have been when I got to campus. And I'm out there for spring football, and I play in the spring game. I catch a pass, and I'm thinking, how do I? So I took this leadership class in Iowa City, and we read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Are you familiar with that book?
Mm-hmm. I haven't read it, but I'm familiar. Yeah.
One of those habits is to begin with the end in mind. So any project you take on, you start it with knowing where you want to be at the end of it. And if my goal is to be a Major League Baseball player, why the hell am I playing college football? Right. So that's not that decision isn't going to help me get to where I want to be. So I unfortunately I was crushed again. I had to give up football to play baseball. And since I couldn't play baseball in Iowa City, I had to find another option because I was too small for Iowa football, and I was not beginning with the end in mind. If my end goal was to be a Major League Baseball player.
Okay.
Time to transfer.
So how does that process work? You contact coaches at other schools and say, "Hey, I'm gonna get out of here," or does somebody contact you?
In 1998, it was a tricky process. Now it's much easier. Maybe if you went to your Instagram page right now and said, "Hey guys, I'm transferring out of school. Who wants me?" You'd probably bombarded with like 100 messages instantly, because that's just the way people communicate now. Back then, we had to sort of scour through the internet, which was pretty new in '98, and try to find any places. I wanted to be a Division I player. It's like, well, what's a good fit for me? You know, one of the schools that it was after me hard in high school was University of Illinois Chicago, but they had signed, since I committed to Iowa, they had signed like 2 or 3 catchers. So even they weren't looking for catchers. So it's like, now where do we go? Like, what do we do? So with the help of some local coaches that I knew, we had looked at a few schools, and I had played summer ball with a guy that was a pitcher at the University of Nebraska. And I didn't even know where that was on the map. But I knew their football team was pretty good because they were national champs 3 times in the 90s. I mean, everyone knew that they were good, but I didn't know anything about baseball. But at that time, we had reached out because I had a summer ball teammate that played there, and they had a new coach, and he was interested in looking for athletes, not just players. I thought, seemed like a good start. So we visited a few southern schools, and we drove to Lincoln, where we met with Coach Van Horn in his office. And he said, the best players will play, whether you're a walk-on or a scholarship athlete. You want athletes, not baseball players. And since I had good credentials, and a couple of my other coaches had called him, he was willing to give me a shot. It's like, holy cow. And plus, back then, the facilities the weight room, Joey, was sick. In the 90s, like, not everybody had these monster cavernous warehouse weight rooms. You know, back in Iowa, football had their own weight room. Every other sport had this like crappy closet full of like shitty weights. Iowa football was huge. Everything else was sort of secondary. But in Nebraska, this huge weight room was for all sports. It didn't matter what sport you played. Everyone lifted in the same room. It's like, wow, this is sweet. Like, this is like the pinnacle of baseball. It gets to work out on these like hammer jammers. Like, this is awesome. So one of the reasons why I said, yes, let's go here was because I was so impressed with the facilities and their commitment to, athletic and academic excellence. So they had this study hall area for players, and there was a pretty big, they were really into all aspects of athletic and academic excellence.
That's really interesting because, I mean, now, I spent a week at IMG Academy in Florida, which is basically a high school. Well, not basically, it is a high school for 70% of their kids going Division I. Is something crazy. It's like $80,000 a year. They do offer some sort of scholarships, but they've got all these multiple facilities. So you see high schools now. Obviously IMG is top notch. I think they're number 1 in high school football, but you see these major facilities, and you walk in, and it does set the tone to how you feel like your life's gonna be. I'm like, man, if I would have gone to IMG, and played soccer here, what I would have been fine. But that's also what pretty much the rest of the country is thinking. And it's nice when people really take the effort to cover everything. And you mentioned it, especially education as well. So, I mean, I went to college basically play hockey and kind of figured it out from there. But I think when you have somebody, and not just one person, but an entire program behind you, and you've got those people that believe in you, I think that really sets you up. So you get to Nebraska, you start playing right away.
No, so I was never involved. So you and I are kind of close in age, but like travel baseball was never a part of my youth. I played football in the fall and baseball in the spring and summer. So I was never part of like a travel team that traveled outside of Chicagoland area. So when I got to Lincoln and we had fall ball, it's like, play baseball in the fall? Like, fall is for football. But some of the kids that were like a year behind me, like they had come from these year-round, select programs they love fall ball. And I'm still a little bit pissed because I'm not playing football in the fall. The weather changes, the leaves change. It's like, I'm thinking football, and now here I am standing, on the baseball field. I could hear a football practice happening, a few fields over. So that was a little bit of a tough transition for me, having to give up football. Now I'm playing fall baseball in a football school. So that was like my own internal battle. But I realized right away that I was a bit behind because I had a full year of football. I had not played baseball, and I played summer ball after leaving Iowa, but I had not been specific to baseball really ever. And so I could tell right away, like, ooh, like I need to get caught up quick because I wasn't ready yet for what was coming. And I was lucky, I guess, feeling fortunate that I was kept on because, you know, I think baseball, I don't know if hockey's like this, but baseball, you are guaranteed to have some days you are absolute garbage. That's what I feel like baseball is very relatable because you have good days, you have bad days. You try to keep the same mentality every time. Well, you're not as good as you think you are, not as bad as you think you are. And if you have a bad day, well, all it takes is like one good at bat the next day and everything's turned around, right? Where you're that close to getting hot. So trying to keep it like a level head during all this chaos is interesting for any athlete, much less, you know, 19, you know, high school, college age. So trying to maintain a level sanity, like a even level of sanity when you're struggling. And a lot of those kids, if you've seen this, they come to college and they're the best player in their town, they're the best player in their state on their select team. And then they get to college and like, whoa, everybody's like that. Everyone's the best player in their town. I didn't feel like I was ever like a superstar at any level. So I feel like I dealt with failure a little bit better than others because I wasn't hitting 600 in high school. You know, I was good, but like not great, I guess is how I would describe it. So I was able to handle that better than others.
Yeah, I mean, how would you handle that adversity? You had a lot of adversity thrown at you, and you know, people that experience a lot of success when they have that failure, if you will, they don't really know how to handle it. Actually, my last podcast was why you should be a failure, but I think people need to fail, but if you haven't really experienced falling on your face, how do you get up?
That's a great point. And I'll tell you, there's a part of the book where at Iowa, I'm a 183-pound fullback. And this is one play that stands out in my mind is something where I had not been used to being the nail. I was used to being a hammer. And I got laid out on like 3 consecutive plays where I was definitely the nail. And I remember this is in the book also where Bobby Diaco, who was our scout team coach, he's currently the defensive coordinator at Purdue. He's been at Nebraska, Notre Dame. He's kind of a big name in college football. You know, he saw this happen and he's like, Jesus Christ, Kent, defend yourself. Like he saw me just get smoked. It was almost like in Fresh Prince where Uncle Phil throws guys out of the house, they go flying backwards. It was kind of what happened to me.
Yeah.
And the guy that did it, Skip Miller, he was probably 6'3", 250, right? I'm 6'2", 180, right? So that's not an even collision. But you know, looking back on now, I probably shouldn't have gotten back in the huddle for the next couple of plays. But I'm like, shit, like I can't go out like that. So I guess what I'm saying is I had been knocked down before, like figuratively and literally. And it's like, well, there's only one way to go. It's up. So if I went 0 for 4 at the plate, it's like, well, at least I didn't get trucked by Skip Miller. So that's always there's no physical pain, right? And I guess that helps. Baseball is a game of failure. So you have to be understanding that you are going to suck on some days, and you just got to make sure that those sucky days don't string together, and you have 2 bad days better lead to 3 good days. You know, it's all it takes is one good play to turn it around.
So you got to embrace the suck, man.
Embrace the suck. When the Cubs came out with Joe Madden or try not to suck, whatever that was, it's like that's funny because baseball players can be pretty humble. As good as you are, you're going to be terrible a couple times a year.
Yeah, that's very true. Any sport is like that, or anything in business. I mean, you know, there's days when I was on the ice and I didn't have it. I felt like shit. And then like I said, you have that one spark, whether it's you running over somebody or that one shot, that one play, you know, you're like, it really sets the tone. So I think if anybody is really right now, especially with 2020, 2021, you've got those bad days, just you're waiting for your good moment. And then that moment can really spark you, whether that's running that person over, scoring that goal, or, you know, getting that job offer. So I really think that's a good lesson there. So how do now you're in Nebraska. When do you really kind of start taking the field and catching up?
So we obviously the commitment to college sports, as you know, is big time, and that was what I loved the most. I didn't really want to be a regular student and go out and get hammered on a Tuesday. Like I didn't do any of that. I wanted to get better, and you know, my goal is to play Major League Baseball, right? So that's what I'm here for. So if I had to make social sacrifices, I was cool with that. But that first year, my coach and I, we had a couple instances. I barely played. Like we played 60 games as a team. I played in 6 of them. So I got I shouldn't be playing. I'm not as good as the other guys, which I'm cool with. But there were a couple times where I felt like I had earned some playing time in garbage time, just based on how like I gotten better at my work ethic. I was a team first kind of guy. And in the book, we beat Kansas by 26 runs over the weekend. Everybody played but me. We played a game at Iowa State. It was 14. It's like a 5-hour game. Everybody played but me. And I'm thinking, well, what do I have to do to get into the lineup during some of these like not garbage time, but these sort of blowout moments? And some of the other coaches would tell me, oh yeah, you're gonna play some of these midweek games that were non-conference. I'm like, oh great, let's go. And then I would show up and I would never be in the lineup. And there was not only that, not only was I not starting, I probably wouldn't play at all. So I'm getting like these different messages. And it's interesting because some of my clients that read the book, they're like, how do you remember all this stuff? Papers about them while it was happening that my mom and dad kept in like a bin in the garage that I was able to use as references that sort of help add some credibility to the authenticity of the story. Because it's not just me remembering from 20 years ago. Like I have these physical papers that I used in English class or competition class. I'm like, oh, I remember this. So that helps sort of put some physical placement to some of the facts. But I didn't get to play much, and my coach and I kind of had a few moments where he was laying into me for things that I hadn't done. And I was surprised that I'd never really been screamed at before for not doing anything. Basically being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I'm thinking, I'm not a little bitch. Like what? I don't deserve that. So, we had a good year as a team. We were the Big 12 tournament champions. I have a sweet ring, which I'm proud of. And we advanced into the tournament, and we go home for the summer. I come back in the fall, and I had a great fall practice, similar to like spring football. I were trying to see who's ready for the spring, and there was me and a couple other kids that one was on scholarship, the other 2 were freshmen that were also on scholarship. So I'm the only one that isn't. And our returning starter was hurt, so I get to play more, and I play well. And we have I'm sort of summarizing this, but we have our end of the fall meeting, and he says things to me that I have never been told before. Like he broke me down in a way psychologically that put me into a very like dark place that I had never seen before, and I have never really seen since. So it was clear that he was quite clear that I would never play for him. I wasn't good enough to play anywhere, much less here. And I was like stunned because I'd gotten so much better in a short amount of time. So again, from an adversity standpoint, what happens when you think you can do something and someone that's in charge of you says you can't, whether it be a boss or a coach or anybody that's right. in a leadership role? That was really hard to hear because I had done well. I felt like I had, again, my dad being a coach, I feel like I was pretty aware of how to get better and what I needed to do to be successful. I could pretty much self-coach and regulate. Not that I didn't like coaching, because I did, but I could like know what I needed to work on, and I would take that time to work on it. So when he lit me up that way, it's like, well, if I want to be a Major League Baseball player and play professionally, and I can't play in college, what do I do? Yeah. Do I be a regular student? That's not for me. What's the next step here? So I had gone home for Thanksgiving, talked about it with my parents, and we agreed that I was going to stay in Lincoln. I was going to be so good in practice that it was embarrassing for him, and continue to get better. And I was going to, be a part of the team and maybe win a college World Series. All right, I can handle that. Then I came back and we had another meeting, and all 3 coaches tore into me and put me into that place again, basically saying that I didn't deserve to be there. I wasn't good and I couldn't play. So after that, I decided I can't stay here because I feel like I'm unwanted. I love my teammates. I love my best friends around the team. My girlfriend, now wife, was on the Scarlet Dance team, one of the dancers for football and basketball games. So it's like I have this life here. Now what? Where do I go now? Yeah. How does this play out?
So did you pick up and leave? Because man, that's gonna be hard, because you hear this all the time about people saying like, I had a teacher that said I wasn't smart enough, I'd never do anything, and then I became a billionaire, whatever. But
right.
But that's like a high school teacher or something else. You were already on the team. You were already there. You had already, from what you had thought, proven yourself and put in the work ethic. So how in the hell do you come out of that when you've got a multitude of coaches now saying like, "Hey, get off the team and give room for somebody else," basically, right?
It was tough, man. And again, the one in Iowa City was different because he was basically questioning my commitment.
Hmm.
In Lincoln, my ability was being questioned, which was something that I had never been a part of before. And I think you've probably seen this from hockey. Like every time, you got some hotshot freshmen that come in there and they think they're pretty good, and maybe they're late to practice one day, maybe they oversleep for a meeting, or they skip class, or they're late for weights. Like that was never me. I come from a coaching family. My grandpa was in the military. I come from a fairly disciplined background where at South, I was a 2-sport captain. So I get like, I will be the first person there and the last person to leave. I'm not going to be outworked at any level. So if I'm working hard and doing well and getting better, why are you saying these things to me? If I sucked and I wasn't good, like I get it. And I think that most players get to a point where they realize that maybe it's the jump from high school to college or college to pro, or where you're like, man, I'm not as good as these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought that. My roommate in Nebraska was Ken Harvey, who was Kansas City Royals draft pick, played in the big leagues, and was a Major League Baseball All-Star in 2004. So like he's at the highest level. He's snoring right next to me. It's like I can do what he does, not quite the way he does it, but like all these players, my teammates, are being eventually draft picks, and a handful of them are making it to the top of baseball. It's like we're all in the same room. Why them and not me?
Mm.
And I hope that doesn't sound selfish, but
No.
I thought, well, I'm doing the work. I'm ready. I want the same things that these guys have. Well, how come they're able to play and I'm not?
Hey, man, that's not selfish. That's realistic because you surrounded yourself, and sometimes in life it's just about who gets that extra opportunity. If playing fields are even, sometimes just one person will get that opportunity and some won't, and it might be that little moment where you've got to shine. And I really have a similar path to you because I stopped playing college hockey, and I thought like maybe I go play minor league, but I don't get my ass kicked for $40,000 a year and bust my teeth out, and like I like my face, and my parents spent a lot of money on orthodontists and whatever. And I got an opportunity 5 years after college to play a single A pro game, and I got on the ice first period. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is moving. These are all kids that didn't play college, but they went straight to playing single A pro. And then second period, like I break out, the game slows down. I get a breakaway, hit the post, I don't score, but then there's a bench clearing brawl like in Slapshot. Literally, the coach jumps off the ice, and I get done playing, and it was the Detroit Hitmen. I don't even know the name of the single like pro league at the time. And a scout comes in afterwards. I'm 27 years old, dude. And he's like, hey, we're starting a new league, a new single A league next year. We'll give you, we'll pay for you. You'll stay with the host family, whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm 27 years old with a wife. Like, thanks. But all these guys are 19 to 22. So, I had that moment afterwards, which I want to get into, like kind of because, you go through college, you have all of that, and then you end up playing baseball somewhere else, correct? Where do you go?
Jackie's dad was a big baseball fan. He himself was drafted by the Reds in the 70s. He's a big pitcher, loved baseball, and knew I wanted to play professionally. So he suggested that I stay in Nebraska and go to the University of Nebraska Omaha, which is kind of like University of Illinois Chicago, but there. It wasn't that far away. All my credits transferred. They had a new coach, Coach Bob Harold, who had just come from the Royals organization as a player and coach, and he had been very successful as a minor league manager. Now he's taking over his hometown college team. I thought, well, shit, if this guy is a pro background, he'll see that I'm ready to play pro ball, and he can get me in with the Royals, and had just drafted 3 of my teammates. I'm like, oh, my goal is pro ball. So even though it's Division II and I have to sit out a year, like I will take that hit for like to begin with the end in mind, right? I will eat this one out, and then so I can go, be a minor league player, hopefully on my path to the big leagues. And I got there. I sat out the 2000 season, and I got in the fall. I came home. I played on a summer team in Chicago. It was great. I played well. I was statistically awesome. I had a great year, and I could not have been more confident and more jacked up for like the next couple moments for college baseball. And Coach Harold gave me a scholarship that fall. So here, and I'm like in my 7th college semester. I have a scholarship. I'm like, oh, here we go. Let's now I finally, maybe this was the home that I'm looking for all the time. here we are. We're ready to play. Let's rock it out. And then that's one of our first games of the year where I get off the bus. I'm like, my shoulder's hurting me. Like, that's weird. I've always taken care of my arm and I did all the strength and conditioning and the rotator cuff exercises. It's like high school. I'm like, it's got to be fine. It's just, I just got to ice it a little bit. But early in the year, I'm like, God, my arm is killing me. And I'm trying to play through it because I know I want to get drafted. I want to play professionally. And I am playing like shit. Like, I can't throw. And as a catcher, my game was primarily defense. I was okay hitter, but what was going to get me to the next level was essentially defense and catching, blocking, and receiving. When I couldn't really throw the ball back to the pitcher, and I lost all confidence in my, when your biggest strength becomes a weakness, now it's a mind fuck. I'm like, oh my God, I can't throw the ball anywhere. I hit like crap, and I finally shut myself down. I didn't really play a whole lot because it was a rough situation with my arm. So I hit like, maybe I forget what the book says, maybe like 038. Like it's terrible. That's or maybe it was, no, I'm sorry. Maybe I got 30 at bats. I don't remember. It's bad. Maybe 038 was a little bit low, but yes, it was bad. And, I got to figure out what's wrong with my arm. The training staff says it's fine. I don't think it's fine. They suggested it was like a mental problem. It definitely was not a mental problem. So I had come home. I was working construction, playing summer baseball again. And I get a letter in the mail saying that my scholarship for the 2001 academic year is 0.00. So wow. I call my coach. We have an argument on the phone about whether or not I'm a scholarship athlete. I say that I played bad because I'm hurt, not because I suck. He's like, well, since you're not a scholarship athlete, you're expected to clean out your locker. You can try to walk on to the program if you want to. I'm like, whoa, hold on. I didn't come here for this. And I had to figure out what was wrong with my arm, because had the White Sox called me that day, I probably couldn't have played because I was hurt. So after seeing a physical performance decline, I saw a surgeon, Dr. Mark Asselmeyer. He's like pushing on my arm. He's like, oh yeah, this is a problem. And the MRI showed no tears, but he's pushing on me. He's like, yeah, we should probably scope this. Now, every surgeon is always going to suggest surgery,
right?
But I felt like I had no options in terms of, pain was high, performance was low, and I didn't see it getting any better. So I had shoulder surgery on September 11th, 2001. Which we all know was a crazy day for the world and for the United States. That was a stressful day.
Yeah.
But he found that my rotator cuff was torn, and he put me back together in this like immobilizer sling. And that was pretty much the end of my college baseball career.
Wow. So you get surgery. Well, you lose your scholarship. You get surgery. Do you contact your coach and say, hey, my rotator cuff was screwed, or you just let that go?
We talked about it. And I'm trying to look at this objectively from his perspective, right? He's a new coach. He's trying to build a program. I come in with some hype and I play like crap, not because I'm bad, because I'm hurt, I think. He's like, well, I got to give that scholarship to somebody else, right? He's like damaged goods. He didn't say that, but I'm trying to see it from his perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
And I'm thinking I'm an out of town guy. I don't really belong here. I'm here for baseball. Now there's no baseball. So I might as well look into this graduation thing. So for college, right, I was 5 years, 3 sports, 5 years, 3 schools, 2 sports, 1 surgery, and 1 illness.
Wow. All right. So yeah, when I met you back at Crunch, bringing it full circle here, you were, I don't want to say just a trainer, but right, that's what you're doing. You're a trainer. But you weren't getting ready for the White Sox. How does that happen?
So I played 2 years of low-level independent league baseball, which is probably comparable to there's probably some hockey comparisons that I don't know. So
it was probably that single A minor league program I played with. I can't even remember the name of the league. So there you
go. It is professional baseball. It's minor league baseball, but it was in the independent Northern League. I was getting paid $750 a month.
Wow.
To be a catcher, and it's my first year post surgery. I'm on bus rides for 20 plus hours. Like I'm a backup player, which is my role. And I'm playing not well in limited time. Plus you have all this time to think about how much you suck when you walk up to the plate and you see you're hitting 190. It's like, geez. And plus the fans are like, hey, Kent, it says here you weigh 210. You're hitting 190. You suck. Like, yeah. Thanks for the reminder, buddy. Like I see the same thing that you see. So I played in Gary, and in 2004, I played in San Angelo, which was, again, for $600 a month. And there was times where I would get a chance to play, and I'm playing well, and then the team would shift, and I would be back on the bench. So I'm like really frustrated with. I pretty much had no playing time in college, and now I'm trying to make up for it. And then I'm in situations that are really out of my control. And here I am. I'm 26 now. 25. I'm making $600 a month in San Angelo. I'm home. I need to find a job because I don't know what's going to happen with baseball. So training and crunch was like finally something that was fucking stable.
Right.
Finally, I started crunch in 2003 after my season in Gary. I left a little bit in 2004 for baseball. I came back and I had finally had consistent paychecks and like a home base where I could go. It wasn't like bouncing around schools. So, and I didn't play baseball in 2005 or 2006, which is in baseball years, like it's a lot to lose. Mm-hmm. But the Sox won the World Series in 2005, right? In baseball, we hadn't seen a World Series winner on either side of town like 88 years. So it's like, holy cow, these Sox are like, they're good. Good teams are in Chicago, but they're always somewhere else. And in 2006, the White Sox had their director of player development, David Wilder, was a member of Crunch. And I had heard about him through the sales staff. Like, oh, so this White Sox scout came in the gym. You should meet him. Blah blah blah. And I saw him, and I was like scared to death to talk to him because number one, my college career was poor, and my minor league career thus far had been disappointing at best. So I'm like, oh, I would love to play. What do I do? I haven't played in a couple of years. And it took me like the whole summer to figure out how to talk to the guy. It's like, well, how do you ask a major league scout for a chance? Like, if he's in the bathroom peeing, do I go pee next to him? Like, hey man, how are we doing? Oh yeah, I see you're getting naked in the locker room. Should I sit next to you here and have a discussion? Like, what do I do? Like, I don't even know how to do that. But when I decided to talk to him, he was super cool, and he actually offered me an invitation to spring training in 2007. I did not have to ask for anything. He said, oh, you're a left-handed hitting catcher. Do you still play? I said, well, no, but I want to. It's all I want to do. He's like, you want to come to camp next year? I said, yes, I do. So that would have been September of 2006. And I thought, well, maybe he's nice. I don't know him. He could be bullshitting me. He could be, just being polite. He might forget about this in an hour. Who knows? Right. But I thought if he was serious and I'm not ready, I will never forgive myself. So, they say sometimes you got to let things go before if you love it, let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours. Like, I had not thought about baseball in a couple of years. I didn't feel like I was retired, but I had a chance to play in Mexico and I couldn't afford to pay my rent. So it's like, well, I like crunch, stable paychecks. I mean, I know what I'm doing here. It's helpful, but the White Sox opportunity, it's like, oh, if he was serious and I am not ready, like I will never forgive myself. Right. So I started to prepare. Plus being trainers, like I learned a lot about training from other people, like yourself included, about how to train differently and be more athletic and strengthen some weaknesses. So I felt like I had used that time to make my own body stronger and healthier and eating better and understanding more about performance and not just trying to smash Pop-Tarts and cereal for breakfast. Like what you eat influences your performance.
Crazy.
You can't just chug Red Bulls and be awake, right? I mean, these are things that when you're a kid, no one really goes through with you. But having that opportunity to play made me really lock in on being as good as I could be under the circumstances. So when the calendar year turned to 2007, I'm on the train going to judo. I get a call from a cell phone number I didn't know on my phone. I didn't answer it. And I listened to the voicemail, and it's him saying, just want to make sure you're coming to spring training this year. I thought, holy shit. So I called him back right away. I said, yes. I'm probably yelling on the train, like, yes, I'll be there. And then he faxed me a contract the next day for $1,200 a month to Crunch, signed, sent back off to spring training we go.
Wow. So you show up, they give you a uniform right away?
I show up. I'm 27. I'll be turning 28 in May. This is
which March, is old for a catcher already, right?
Super old for a minor league player for sure. But I've also been off for 2 years, and I think, oh man, I don't have a lot of at bats to go off of. So some of the guys I played against in 2003 were now managers in 2006. So like, you're still playing? I'm like, yeah, well, here I am. But I got there, I get a locker, and I talk about the Huskers and the Hawkeye kids that love their team. I look I see a black White Sox jersey with my name on the back, and I'm like, chills, like everything. My heart stopped for a couple seconds. I'm like, oh, like that's like, it's real. It's real. So my family split between the Cubs and White Sox, but we started going to more Sox games because they were easier to get tickets, and it was closer to our house in Downers Grove. So like I'd watched the Sox for a long time, and obviously it's a baseball town. But when I saw my name on a jersey, it's like, oh my God, this is real. I had to like control my emotions, right? Because it'd been a long journey and a tricky path. But here I am, I'm 27, and some of these kids, like you said, are 18, 19. We're spending a big chunk of practice trying to play catch. I'm like, we're working on playing catch. Yes, because some of these kids have $1 million arms, and they have no idea where it's going. So
Wow.
trying to, adjust to that environment, which was cool. Like I loved every second of it. But this is the part of the book where it gets kind of funny. I had a good camp, ups and downs, but try to stay level-headed. And I got bumped up to AAA for like the last week of camp. The Toby Hall was the White Sox backup catcher that was hurt, and they ended up shuffling around the minor league catchers. And I went up to AAA from low A ball. And we're playing the Colorado Rockies, the big league Rockies, in the spring training game where I'm wearing major league pinstripe White Sox pants. I'm like, wow, like this is crazy. How am I 27 years old, almost 28? I've been out of baseball 2 years. The highest level I played prior to this was independent league. Now I'm in the dugout for a major league spring training game with White Sox, stars like John Garland was there, Jim Thome. It's like, holy shit, I've been watching these guys on TV. Now they're sitting next to me. I'm like, wow, this is nuts. But like, that's how fast things can change. And on those last days of camp, when people were getting released, no one had talked to me. So I'm like, oh, am I in? Am I out? Where do I go? I was told that I was going to stay with the A-ball team, which I was too old for, but like, okay. I'm like, inside, I'm like, okay, woo, I made a team. That's cool. And then the catching coordinator told me that I was going to stay actually in Arizona and extended spring training, which is kind of like the NFL's practice squad, right? So you're kind of hanging around should someone get hurt, which is fine. As long as I'm around, I'll get better. And then finally I got called in the office and said I was released. So within 30 minutes, I was given 3 different baseball destinations, each one worse than the last.
Wow.
That was the end of the career.
But I mean, do you take that as I know looking back at it now, right? But back then, did you have the foresight to think like, holy shit, this was a big deal?
David Wilder gave me a chance that nobody else would give, right? He basically scouted me out of crunch. He never saw me play, didn't really know anything about me, nor did he know my history. He just saw probably I'm 6'2", like 210. Like he saw a frame and a big ass. He's like, oh, well, he could probably catch a little bit. So he didn't know me. So the fact of him to sort of like put his name next to mine, because every player has on their information sheet, like the scout that signed him, right? And David Wilder would be mine. And he was based primarily out of Latin America. So he didn't even really recruit or scout local players, much less guys that were 27 years old. Right. So that opportunity was something that I've been fighting for so long for. He was so helpful in a short amount of time. It's like, wow, it was that not easy, but it was so simple for him to say, yeah, well, we'll take you. So, they didn't know what they were getting, and I didn't think I was going to play much, but I was released on the last day of camp, and my grandpa got to watch me play. My dad and my Uncle Bob came. My aunt and uncle and cousin came. My then girlfriend, now wife, came. Like it was cool to see people watch me play, because I hadn't played much in college, and no one really actually saw me play much. And that was hard to handle, because everybody was supporting me and helping, help me sort of live the dream, so to speak.
Yeah. So is that a good culmination, the end to your athletic story there?
So on the book, there's 2 Chicago stars, which are supposed to signify it started here and it ended here. And it was, here I go again. I have a hard time like letting it go, because I feel like I can still play right now. If someone calls to Brian, we should catch 40 games, I'm like, I got it. I could do it. So it definitely, I'm lucky that I had crunch and I had training to come back to. I think if I was still living like in my parents' basement, making no money and trying to figure out my life, that would be really hard. Right. But I had to sort of let it go to become a trainer and work with clients and then find baseball again, versus having a very difficult lifestyle, living in your basement with no money and eating Cheetos and trying to, figure out what's going to happen with your life.
Yeah. So what is the overarching, if you were to say the major lesson you learned from all of this, what is the life lesson?
I think intrinsic motivation goes a long way. I think that if you are motivated to do well, you have to be motivated to do well regardless of what other people are telling you. It would be a lot of times it's easy to quit, and I hope that anyone that reads the book, especially a high school kid or an athlete that has a big goal, that they stay locked into that goal under all circumstances, because it isn't always easy. Not everyone out there is going to tell you things you want to hear. And I guess I felt like even though I was being told things I didn't want to hear, I didn't feel like they were accurate or correct. I feel like I didn't really believe what they were telling me. So the goal for anyone that reads the book is to stay locked into your goals under all circumstances.
Lock into your goals. Where can people find the book?
The best way to find the book is through my website, which is bkstrength.com. There's a walked-on icon. Click on that. It will lead you right to Amazon. You could also go straight to Amazon, but it's better for me from a search engine standpoint to go to Amazon from my website. bkstrength.com is where I would like everybody to go.
Oh, very, very well put. Where can people find you, man, besides bkstrength.com? I'm sure you got the social.
Oh man, I don't have the social success that you have, but I do have Instagram at bkstrength_Chicago. And hopefully there will be some social media blitzes of the book, which we're using hashtag walked on for people taking pictures of the book cover and adding that hashtag to sort of promote it within the Instagram community.
Amazing. Brian Kent, thanks for coming on. Make sure you check out Walked On, everybody. I'm Joey Thurman. This is another episode of the Fad Your Future podcast. Remember, don't be a fatty, FADDY. Be a part of the future. Take care.